But before the meeting starts, I noticed we have a star in the audience, and I was wondering if I could ask for Mr. Haynes' autograph. Great job, Ron. Great job.
All right.
Guess so. No. But you did that's a great job. I watched all of it.
Okay.
Looked like it was.
No, operator error.
Put it out on my email.
I know what you're saying.
Your work's phenomenal.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes, I thought that's what triggered the name.
Buy one now. You really need it.
That was really inappropriate of me to ask that.
Wait till next year. if it Needs it.
Don't ask.
Being 10:05,
It's just being inappropriate. I wanted to pay attention. For a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah.
He might have gotten interested.
that's
Sit down.
not new for Juby. Come on. My name's Chris Caius. I'm calling the Kane County Administration Committee meeting to order for Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. Maybe we have roll call, please.
Berman, Davis,
That was here.
Ford, Gum,
Here,
Young here.
Juby,
here.
Caius,
Vice President,
Pepe.
Deputy here.
You have an in-person quorum.
we have a quorum. Is there anybody on? I guess there's nobody left. Just about. We're okay. Nobody online or anything. All right, then may I have because we don't have anybody remote. Item 4, approval of the minutes. May I have a unanimous consent to approve the minutes for August 9th, 2023?
Mr. Chair, Gums requests unanimous consent.
Is there any objection? Comes requested, no objection. Minutes are approved. Finance report, financials are on file and attached.
Mr. Chair. May I ask?
Ma'am, Ms. Juby,
May I ask a question about about one of the monthly financials?
you can.
Okay, it's just really, it's really quick. Have we considered looking at bringing cleaning back in-house?
That would be to Mr. Fonstock.
I'm sorry, I was
Wanna-
looking at him, yes.
Address it now or in the budget? There is a section in the budget where we're discussing that. It's,
We can wait.
okay,
I think that's coming up, yeah.
That's fine. Okay,
okay,
thank you.
sure.
Okay, so you'll hear that in the budget toward the end of the minutes or end of the agenda today. Is there any public comment? Anybody in person, online? Hearing none, seeing none. Then we'll have the 7 facilities master plan update from Jason Dwyer, White and Company. Do we have a?
Good morning. I'll actually start before we hand it over to Jason. and
I guess
his
we'll
team.
start with, who are you again?
Heidi Files
Heidi
with
Files. Okay, hi Heidi.
Building Management and IT.
Okay.
So before we hand it over, Blair, if you can go to the next slide. I want to just give a brief overview of why we do long-range planning. Why are we doing it now? And then Roger will talk about the history of facilities development. Thank you. Yeah. So why do we do wrong way. Why do we do long-range planning? Lots of reasons that governments do long-range planning, understanding the infrastructure need to accommodate growth and demographic changes, changes to resource and the service delivery, and to space needs. Resource planning, allocation, and economic efficiency. Facility planning helps with budgeting to understand the renovation and construction costs. It helps with resource and technology planning, and then it can lead to significant cost savings over the long term. Obviously, reducing carbon footprint and environmental sustainability. Facility planning can lead to operational efficiency for public safety and emergency preparedness, effective service delivery for the public, and then ensuring that the county is meeting legal and regulatory compliance. Kane County in particular has a really long history of strong leadership in long-range planning. Back in 1989, the first Kane County Judicial Center Master Plan is on the left. And then in 2009, they updated it for the Kane County Judicial Center Master Plan again. So why now? Over the past decade, The county's taken a lot of, undertaken a lot of efforts to understand operational sustainabilities, accessibilities. That's a big one for this campus especially. We have a lot of ADA and accessibility concerns and improvements that will need to be made to bring it up to compliance. Buildings conditions assessments. We know through these studies that there's a large capital investment required to maintain and keep these buildings operational and habitable. And then the facility space needs assessment is the most recent one that takes a look at how we're going to accommodate growth in the future and the demographic changes and what are the staff needs going to be and what are our space needs going to be over the long term. But then more recently, changes that have happened in the last few years, the new Safety Act, that's going to require a large expansion in the judicial services and facilities. The pandemic, it revealed that we have some shortcomings here at the county. How do we prepare for another pandemic, or how do we do emergency preparedness if we lack storage or the facilities to create, for instance, a vaccination hub? The county was scrambling last time. They were very successful in getting it together, but you might not be that lucky next time if you need a facility to bring these services together quickly. ARP funding, it's a new resource. Large capital investments needed for existing facilities. That's from the conditions assessment studies that I just talked about. You have the recent demolition of the Fabian campus. So you have new opportunities. We have lack of space for employees. We're constantly making new offices in the same spaces and dividing them up into smaller areas, which creates some confidentiality and legal concerns, especially for the judicial side. If you have Zoom meetings with clients and attorneys, you need to have some space that's private and to be able to address the confidentiality concerns. And then ADA and public access. We've had some increased incidents that highlight the deficiencies and the ADA and public access among the campus, especially the Geneva Center. Roger, do you want to talk
Sure.
about the history?
So I think this is Roger from Building Management. The history of the facilities is important to understand that the last 30 years, you have spent well in excess of $100 million on buildings. And I can say that because I've been here for most of these construction of these various buildings. So this is the last 30 years of buildings that have been built. You'll notice the Judicial Center is 1993 all the way up to the multipurpose building in 2021. This does not include renovation of office spaces within the buildings, which are probably in the millions just by themselves. But a couple of large ones, Judicial Center, the Juvenile Justice Center, also the Sheriff's Office and the Adult Justice Center was constructed, relocating the circuit clerk. I've been here for 2 times relocating the circuit clerk. And one that we did not put up there was we moved and renovated the entire 911 office back when the sheriff's office moved. So that was also another $1.5 million, $2 million project that didn't make that list, but that would have been renovation inside of the existing building C. So we didn't build anything new there. But just to give you kind of the idea that I know some have said, the county, shouldn't be building or doesn't need to build $100 million worth of buildings or more. And what I would tell you is that the history tells us that in the last 30 years, you've done that. Probably the next 30 years, you'll need to do similar, if not larger investments for judicial, public safety, expansion at the Judicial Center campus for both different types of program needs, different types of services that are evolving and coming about that we didn't do in the past, but probably should be looking at in the future. And those will need accommodations and space. Most of you know that the State's Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, even today, we have an expansion of an office area for the Sheriff's Office. It's one of those situations where real estate is at a premium. And fortunately, sometimes we have spaces to expand into, like the sheriff's request today. Sometimes we don't. If you were to look through the State's Attorney's Office, you'd find that there's just no space left and they're stacked up in cubicles. Other areas have similar problems, Health Department, as well as the Public Defender. Then you roll forward to the most recent building, which was the multipurpose building. That building, which finished in 2021, I think some people would argue that, we could have built it bigger. Probably should have, but at the time financially, that was what the board agreed to construct. Right now, we still are at the point where we could use more storage, more adequate space for putting inventory of equipment and vehicles and other things. So this is just kind of the historical perspective of it. These were buildings that were built over the last 30 years, and it just gives you kind of the idea of what can be done in 30 years. So with that, we have Jason Dwyer from White here to talk about today's agenda, which is the master plan, the technical recommendations, priorities, and then, our disposition of facilities and properties and where we want to take the master plan going forward. So Jason, you're up. Should get you the.
There we
Thanks,
go.
Roger. Yeah, I got it right.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Again,
Morning.
Jason, good morning. Jason Dwyer with White and Company. I think Heidi and Roger did a really nice job of talking about some of the history of master planning and facilities implementation. I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper on the 2009 plan. I think, really going back to the mid to late 80s, the county's been setting in motion a plan to solve both the identified needs for facilities as well as preserve opportunities for needs that come up that aren't expected, things like the Safety Act or other types of things that come up that aren't expected. And, you need to have a plan in place so that you can evolve and adjust and adapt to things that come into play. So I think there's a lot of components of the 2009, your most recent master plan, that are still very valid. And as we've been going through the update, we've identified a lot of the components that still make a lot of sense. For example, in the purple up at the top there, continued expansion of the judicial center to address the needs for court and agency office expansion, the notion of continuing to consolidate judicial functions into one core facility, moving the circuit clerk space over there to provide additional operational efficiency. So there's a lot of components like that that make sense. There's a couple other elements going back years into the master plan, like the juvenile justice center expansion. It may not be the case now that there's going to be a need for additional detention housing, but there's a footprint for that in case that need arises. So that's an example of preserving space and opportunity for things that may come up. Certainly with the addition of the multi-purpose building, the old plan had clicking ahead here. The old plan had a plan for the government center to go kind of in the southeast quadrant of the main portion of the site. A change was made showing how plans can evolve to put the multi-purpose building. A lot of the functions that were previously planned to be on the north side of Route 38, the coroner's facility, fleet maintenance, and so forth, were relocated to the main portion of the site. But that's just an example how if you have an initial plan in place, it can evolve as needs change and as opportunities present themselves. So I think that there's a lot of validity to work that was done in the past by past boards and administration to develop a plan that really gives you opportunities and a roadmap for the future. So kind of where are we at today? We've been working on the master plan update now for a couple months. And as I said, I think a lot of the components that have been discussed in past plans are still very valid. We're starting to settle in pretty nicely into how to solve the identified needs for the space needs assessment and other things that have come up along the way. So we've settled in nicely in terms of solving components for the judicial center, expanding that. There's been some new components with the juvenile justice center. But I think one of the big elements that's been a little bit more difficult to get to a resolution on is where should the government center campus be located? So what we've done a series of workshops. Many of you have been part of those workshops as we've gone through them. The most recent one being on August 9th, where we did a committee of the whole master planning workshop and got a lot of feedback from those that were present at that meeting. But what we wanted to do today is take a step back and revisit the objective technical analysis that we've developed so far. I think many of you will remember very early in this process, I said that we would be looking at some technical criteria, trying to do an objective assessment of which location would be best. Certainly there's a lot of emotional attachment to various sites or different subjective criteria that could be put into play. But from our side as the architectural planning team, we're just trying to present what we feel is a clear and objective assessment based on certain criteria. So on the left side of the table there, we evaluated a couple components: location, site attributes, building organization, the public service potential, logistics issues, and then cost is another big element in evaluating sites. So to the right, we presented 5 different site options. First one being Fabian Parkway, second being moving the government center operations to the judicial center campus, and then 3 different scenarios to rework the government center at this current site. So as we looked at the technical scores of each of these different criteria, really 2 sites kind of rose to the top, and that's the Fabian Parkway site and the judicial center site. So what we said is, let's dig a little bit deeper on that. We've had a couple additional conversations with different agencies and explored some of the things we felt might have been challenging about some of the sites. Because really both of these sites present a really great opportunity for the county to develop a really nice, operationally efficient, service-oriented government center campus. There were a couple things that I think previously were maybe given a little bit lower score to the judicial center campus. Some issues about logistics and how best to use that property, maybe some governmental issues there. But we've looked at that. We've had a couple additional meetings, and I think that there's good opportunity to overcome things that we thought before might have been challenges. How the property is designated, how site utilities are served into the new buildings that would be proposed. So that, I think, kind of adjusts the score up a little bit. Also, as we've been thinking about things, a lot of the discussions through our visioning workshop, discussions with the steering committees, they centered a lot around operational efficiency. Certainly, there's a big cost related to building a building, renovating a building, but the cost of running operations for 30, 50, 70 years into the future is an ongoing cost. So, we've been looking at, are there ways to get a little bit better operational efficiency by consolidating all functions into one location? We've had discussions about public wayfinding, people that maybe come here to the county clerk when they really want to be at the circuit clerk. Not that those are things that happen, every day or multiple times a day, but I think any opportunity we can to consolidate functions so that the public, when they come to the site, are able to identify all the services in sort of one consolidated location is a help to the community. Internally, in terms of operations, there's certainly efficiencies with some of the supportive groups like building management. Had a lot of discussions with building management over the time in the study that, trying to have staff located at multiple building locations or moving from site to site or doing coverage if somebody's off. I think the same is true with IT in terms of doing direct support for groups. If somebody has to go to a remote site, there's time lost in travel and so forth. So I think that there are a number of other efficiencies that maybe weren't contemplated in the initial scoring. So the bottom line from our perspective is, we feel that our technical recommendation is really to look at consolidating all functions into one main site location. So what I'm showing on the screen now is I guess what I'll call a master site plan for all of your core facilities. I'll talk in a moment about still the value of having some satellite facilities, but what I want to focus on here is really all of your core facilities, your judicial operations, correctional components, government, health department. We've talked extensively about the health department having their main headquarters a little farther south in Aurora and some of the benefits of consolidating those operations and more toward the center of the county. So maybe I'll just kind of work through a couple of the components here on the site. First off, on the north side of Route 38, so that's about 20 to 25 acres of property that's available for county development. County owns the property. And what we're suggesting is basically consolidating 2 core elements up there. First, at the northeast corner of Peck and Route 38, locating the new government center site there. I think that gives an opportunity for some nice presence on Route 38. It's a very identifiable property location as people come to this location. So we can consolidate that. There's good opportunities to provide nice buffering, landscape buffering to the neighbors to the north. We know there's residential neighbors there. So I think we are looking at whether there's good opportunities to expand trail access and, public amenity space. I think there's all kinds of things that can be done as you further develop a plan like this. So that would be the first element, is consolidating all county government functions into a building at that location. And then sort of on the east side of that northern portion of property, we're proposing a new main health department. So there's been a lot of discussion in various meetings and in past committee, the whole meetings about whether there's a potential for evolution of services at the health department. Right now, what we're identifying is a footprint for a primary health department site to consolidate all the operations that are at Aurora with a little bit of expansion to meet the projected space needs. But what I think is really nice about this is the county continues to discuss and explore the opportunities to provide additional services, things like mental health services or any other public health elements that could come into play. You've got additional property area. So in the far east edge of the site, it's open, developable land. So I kind of think of this as almost like a mini health department campus within the campus. It can be a nice footprint to start with. The main building is a primary identifiable location, but you can continue to expand your operations either through additions to the building or additional buildings. I mean, if you get into more highly specialized mental health support type facilities, you may want to plan those as a facility that's more of a standalone, slightly different design facility. So I think this really gives you good opportunity to not only solve the identified needs now, but continue to expand if you add services. As I said before, right here in the gray is the Judicial Center facility right now. And there's a plan to expand that. I think everybody has consistently said that consolidating judicial functions into one facility makes sense. Through the development of the space needs analysis, there's really some fairly significant needs for office expansion for groups like the state's attorney, public defender, and court services. So I think we have a pretty solid plan that will allow you to expand that building to continue to support the needs of the judiciary. As it relates to the jail and the sheriff's office space, we've had some discussions about challenges related to parking. So we're exploring opportunities to expand parking. Things like loading dock and storage are deficient in that space. So we're looking at expansion potential there as well. So I think you've got really good footprints set up for the various operations, and each one of them has the ability to expand a little bit to meet the projected needs.
Sorry, quick question on that. Sorry to interrupt, Jason.
No worries.
Parking garage, a facility, when did we abandon that concept? Because I don't see that on here anywhere.
Yeah, so I think, what we've been looking at is right now, if we explored, you may remember, we explored a couple different scenarios for judicial center expansion. And the one we've settled on is expansion kind of to the northwest of the existing facility. There's the large grass area as you kind of enter the property. We're trying to develop additional surface parking first, because that'll be your least costly solution to additional parking. But there's the option to add a parking structure behind the new addition as well to provide additional parking. So, we're always going to try
The semicircle below 6 between the pond and the.
exactly just north of the pond and behind that red building 6 there would be where we would propose a parking structure. Certainly parking structures could be added in various locations on the campus, but we're recommending that if you were to proceed forward on that building, do a little bit deeper dive on the parking, make the evaluation, and first try to solve it through surface parking, because that's going to be less costly. So a couple other components of the plan. Item 7 here on the right, just to the east of the multi-purpose building. Right now, CaneCom and the OEM office are located on this campus. I think as we've talked to them, the idea of having them be in a little bit more private area, it's more of a supportive back of house. We don't want to have high public access to those spaces. So there's some synergies there with vehicles and so forth. So locating a new facility there to the east, I think, makes a lot of sense to support those operations. And it can be sized a little bit, even, as Roger said before, if maybe having it to do all over again, or if there was additional money at the time, the multi-purpose building would have been built a little bit larger. There is probably potential there to expand a little bit larger addition there for CaneCom and OEM, at Building 7 and maybe repurposing some of the space in the multi-purpose building for some other uses. So I think there's just some opportunities there to solve a couple problems at the same time. And then I guess one last component I'll talk about in terms of a building addition component is this red box number 9 on the plan, just to the west side of the Juvenile Justice Center. As we've talked through with the judiciary, there's a need for additional supportive office space there. Also, maybe even an additional juvenile court potentially. So I think many of you will remember that the second courtroom in that building was built out not too long ago, but just based on caseload and discussions, I think there may be a need to add another juvenile court at some point. So the addition is shown there would accommodate those functions. We've also talked about components like what could happen in the future with CASA. CASA certainly supports the juvenile operation most effectively. So potential to consolidate that there. Opportunities like a neutral exchange site could be incorporated in there as well. So again, I think a lot of this is about trying to get the right types of uses in the right spots on the campus based on how the operations happen. We're still showing a preserved footprint for additional detention housing. Again, not that we're recommending that's going to happen. As things change over years, certainly there's a move toward less incarceration, but you never know what might happen 20, 30 years from now, whether that's used for additional detention housing or it could be used for some other use altogether. So one last thing I want to talk about on this plan. I think that, as we've talked about it, we want to make sure we're preserving opportunities for the future that we don't know. As we develop these plans, we try to focus on everything we can identify that's going on, all the needs that we can foresee right now, but things do change. I don't think anybody really anticipated the Safety Act or other types of things. There's always legislative changes. There's always movements to add more support for different facilities. So you can see here in the 2 boxes labeled 14 on the far east side of the plan, east of the Juvenile Justice Center, you still have additional ability to expand for things that we don't know about right now. So this really sets up an arrangement where everything south of 38 really directly supports the judiciary, public safety type operations with continued ability to expand, incorporating the expansion of the ring road here, and then setting up, I'll say, more of the governmental and health related functions on the north side of 38 to consolidate all your operations, all your core operations in the one primary location. And again, I think this campus could be set up in a really nice way, add more trails, add more landscaping, could become a nice destination for the public to come to, not only to get services, but just to enjoy a nice campus.
May I add something?
Okay, other questions? You want to follow up?
I just wanted to
Heidi?
follow up and add one thing that might not be explicitly showed here. It's a minor addition, but we have been looking also at additional parking for the sheriff's office and a impound lot. So, but those actually might happen in the closer nearer term. We'll make sure that that's on here.
Yeah, I think I just mentioned that in passing, but there's opportunities in and around the sheriff's office and that to continue to expand parking as needed, because through the discussions with the steering groups, we've identified that as a need.
Then, Madam Juby?
So where are we with the annexation agreement?
I might let Roger speak to
Talk to
that.
that. So the last meeting we had with Mayor Kevin Burns and their staff was related to their intent. And the discussion was that they were going to work with St. Charles to identify a revised boundary agreement. So they are in process of working on that with St. Charles. That's really between the 2 municipalities. And then secondarily, they were in favor of annexing the entire property all the way to the north of 38.
And what is their timeline for that?
They're working on it. I can't really,
So
make
if they
them
go
do it.
4 years out,
I think that it'll be short term.
but we don't know.
We don't have an absolute timeline from them. They were going to reach out to St. Charles and start the discussions. We could ask them for a timeline.
So
I
we're
don't know.
basically designing a plan on something that may or may not require us to go to referendum.
You couldn't settle that probably by referendum. You'd have
Well,
to
you
get
have to go to
municipal
referendum if
agreement.
it's not if the county seat
Yeah.
isn't in Geneva, you have to go to referendum for that. You have to go to the voters to ask them to move the county
Yeah,
seat.
right now we're in an unincorporated Kane County. Neither one of them is in St. Charles or Geneva.
My
and-
point is, if we're putting something
Yeah.
there and it's going to be our government center, which by the way, we
Yeah.
put there when we abandoned the garage that we all voted to do. We're designing something with a huge unknown.
Yes.
Okay, that's
I,
all.
I agree to the extent that it's unincorporated. We've addressed the unincorporated part with the other offices by having them maintain offices at Third Street Courthouse. So you know, the statutes are kind of limited in terms of the detail that they provide for what type of office you have to have in what particular jurisdiction. And this has come up in other counties throughout the state
Mhm.
where they have more property outside of a municipal boundary and they want to build government offices in unincorporated areas. So it could be that a county government, you know, could exist and function in an unincorporated area, much like the judicial center has and the sheriff's office and other offices, including our circuit clerk. Our circuit clerk is in St. Charles now. So
It's the county seat that it's
Yeah,
the CO.
I'm just
that
saying that
I understand.
those
the other
all
things
those
that you
challenges
have that, but
exist
that
right
wasn't
now.
My question. My
Yeah.
question was, where
Yeah.
are we in the annexation agreement to be discussing moving our government
Sure.
center to that particular piece of property?
So we're waiting for St. Charles and Geneva to get back to us on their boundary agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have just a couple more quick slides. So I gave you kind of the overview from a graphic standpoint in terms of consolidation. I just want to click through the list of projects that would encompass the whole of the master plan. So I really talked about the functions that would be, I'll call your core functions, the judicial center campus. Right now, we're trying to make some assessments on what might be short-term or mid or long-term projects. I think, you know, as we've talked and as Heidi talked about at the introduction here, it's not that all this work needs to be done on day one. I mean, we're putting together a plan that is a long-range master plan. And you can see from past plans, going back to the mid 80s to the most recent in 2009, you put a plan in place, components get implemented, things may evolve, things might change in time. But right now, what we're suggesting is in terms of a short-term project, you could likely accomplish the health department project in a little bit shorter term. There seems to be a little bit more availability for funding related to that. Some of the other projects are much more significant and would require a little bit more financial planning. One that I would say kind of is closer to the top of the list in terms of a priority need relative to space needs is your judicial center expansion. We really identified that through the space needs assessment as being one of the most important space needs driven projects. I think the alternative, you know, here with the government center is a little bit more related to some of the technical constraints, accessibility issues, you know, just building condition issues and so forth. But the judicial center expansion is driven largely by a true need for additional space that really has existed for several years and hasn't been able to be addressed holistically. So in kind of that mid long-term range on the core campus, judicial center expansion, new government center, which we talked about, and then the facility for KingCom OEM, and then judicial center expansion. And we've been seeking feedback in terms of prioritizing each of those projects. I think there's a little bit more work left to do. I've kind of given you my sense of what I feel might be some of the county's priorities right now, but there needs to be a little bit more dialogue around that. Switching gears a little bit, we have another category of projects that we kind of call other or sort of satellite functions. So another piece that has been discussed pretty extensively is storage. I think that was identified as a pretty pressing deficiency when during COVID, when you were trying to bring in a lot of supplies to deal with the pandemic and really had nowhere to put them. And a lot of stuff is stored at the one of the housing towers at the jail, which is not really planned for storage. So we've identified a storage facility as a potential short-term need, and no suggestion definitively on where to go with that. There's a potential to build new space. There's a potential to lease and so forth, but it's one of a higher priority need. Kind of some ancillary components, Third Street, if you move forward with the work of the judicial center expansion, it frees up some space and some renovations can be done at Third Street. It also will free up some space at Randall Road. We've talked about the potential to move the branch traffic court back to the judicial center and maybe free up that space to be used for conferencing. That was actually planned to be served double duty as conferencing space. And I think with very minimal investment, you could make that a much more robust conferencing center for larger group gatherings and that, which is something you really don't have great space for right now. And there's other opportunities for that space, for swing space and other uses at the property. But so we're right now recommending you preserve and hold on to that asset unless there's another opportunity that somebody wants to purchase it that becomes a better solution for you. Two other key components are your satellite locations. I think there's still a strong need to have satellite presence in Aurora and Elgin. What we've talked about consistently is sort of consolidating a number of functions there. So right now there's a sizable footprint for CERT services directly to support their operations, both at Aurora and Elgin. We've talked about opportunities to consolidate a small, I'll call it government public service outpost. So that could be some of your public facing components like the clerk or treasurer, supervisor of assessments, perhaps things that have much more direct public interaction. You could set up a small location there for people that don't want to drive to the center of the county to get some county government services. There's also opportunities for expanded neutral exchange operations at various locations in the county as well. But what we're suggesting is developing a consolidated operation for multiple services within one area. In Aurora, you have a good site location right now that you could utilize. Actually two locations, but we're proposing the one to the north a little bit at the corner is a potential to renovate, rework, or build new there to consolidate operations. Elgin, the spaces are leased. So I think if you look at more consolidation, need to look closer at a different lease operation or a possible new site location. And one additional piece there that came up through the courts is a desire to have more of a dedicated branch court there. In Aurora, you have the branch court that's in the Aurora Police Department. In Elgin, you're using space at the Elgin City Hall, which just doesn't serve the need quite as well. So I think if there's an opportunity to incorporate a satellite court that's really dedicated for the county, that would be a nice benefit for the county. And then last but not least, in this concept, you still have two property assets that we're saying you should hold on to. You have a very nice piece of property at Fabian Parkway. It's available for any potential need down the road. If there's an outside group that has an interest, that's something the county can evaluate, but we're not proposing you divest of those assets right now, hold on to them until the time is right. Same with this campus. By moving all the county government functions to the judicial center site, this campus can remain. It can be used for other uses. We've had a lot of discussions about, could there be, a county museum? Could there be other types of operations? We're not making a recommendation today on what uses it should be, but we're suggesting hold on to the asset until such time as appropriate use comes to play. So that's kind of where we're at right now in terms of our technical recommendation on how to move forward with the master facilities plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Juby first.
So did I miss the meeting where we decided to go with this campus? Did I miss that whole meeting where that's the only thing that's presented to us today?
No,
Because if we did, I would like to know why I missed that meeting.
no, there was no meeting that made a definitive. You were at the committee of the whole meeting where we talked about the.
At all the
operations.
meetings, I thought.
You,
Apparently not.
no, you didn't miss a meeting. What we're doing today is we're making our planner's recommendation. Ultimately, as I think Roger has said in the past, how you move forward with the master plan is a policy decision of the board. We feel that from our perspective, assessing the information we've gotten from stakeholders in the group, the evaluation criteria, we're making a technical recommendation on what we think would be the best plan forward for the county. But ultimately, it's up to the whole of the board to make a determination on how you want to finalize your master plan. All we're doing today is making a recommendation, but it's up to the board to decide to accept that recommendation or ask us to revisit.
But you're only giving us one fleshed out plan, which kind of steers us down the chute toward that. Because we have two other things that I didn't know we said we weren't gonna explore. And so when you give us a fleshed out plan, it's kind of easy for everybody to say, oh, well, there we go. But I didn't think that was the way we were going through this entire process. So if I am wrong, please correct me. But I'm wrong. I am wrong. We decided that we're just gonna let them pick.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be flip about it.
No, don't be flip about this because I am not happy about
I think
this.
there's been much discussion over many years, a lot of which prior to your being here. And White and Company, I'm sorry, I jumped in without. being
Go ahead, Mr. Davis. You
Um,
put your foot in it. I'll let you.
We've done a lot of evaluation and we hired White and Company to be here to give us a recommendation. So what Jason has presented you today started with, some
With-
metrics on people scoring things. And then I believe he went on to say, we're not dismissing this, but we've looked at this even closer and for a long time. Our recommendation to you is this.
So you're okay with only one thing being presented?
Personally believe it is the only real viable option of the ones that we are looking at.
Okay,
yeah.
well, then you can count on me to be a no.
But I also respect that.
Oh, I respect
what
them
we
too,
hired
but
them
I
to
also
do.
respect process. And I
Oh,
don't feel like we're following the process that I was led to believe.
Okay.
Mr. Fonstock, you have
So,
input.
one of the things that we discussed with White and Company was the fact that we really have kind of a unique problem and opportunity at the same time. We have three different parcels of property that we could redevelop in any way really that we need to. And most government, municipal or county do not have that opportunity. So we kind of have the luxury of having these other sites to pick from. So then the question was, what do we do to position the site and the priority of the buildings? And so, White, we were debating, how do you get the decision to the full county board? And first was the technical recommendation. Now you're at a policy crossroads. So you have a technical recommendation, you've reviewed all three sites. So then the question is, do you want to go back and revisit, or do you want to make a policy decision about the three sites? Do you want to dig in deeper to 1, 2, 3 options? And where does that decision start? Does it start in administration committee? So the policy recommendation is to go with this site and these priorities of buildings. And they're providing our technical recommendation. So you'll notice we don't have a resolution asking you to approve of anything. This was just them presenting their technical recommendation. But at some point, very soon, we need to finalize the site and the order of priority for the buildings. And we need that in the form of a resolution adopting the plan. So we have a recommendation from an architect and engineering firm that has done this with the county for nearly 30 years. And I'm not saying that you can't develop on Fabian or redevelop this site. It's just their recommendation was that we focus on what our history has been and what the opportunities are at the Judicial Center campus. So with that said, you're right. We have a lot of things that are still left to be determined, but we do need to get to where this particular committee makes a policy recommendation that goes through to the county board. So we're not quite there yet today. It's not on the agenda, but that's where we're at.
Gums?
Thank you, Mr. Chair Gums. Really quick, Roger, on that note, when you say we really have to get there on the timeline, why?
I think for the planning purposes, one of the things that started the planning process was the need for facilities based on all the program demands. And then there's the opportunity of funding. If funding is an issue, or you need to do anything to put the funding in place, whether it's a referendum or if it's anything to do with financing buildings or the timeline, the sooner you know, the sooner you could ask those questions.
Okay,
So if the longer you wait to ask those questions, it takes time to do something to fund bonds, or to, if you wanted to do a referendum for any of the things that you talked about in the past, which was included a sales tax, included the property tax, included a referendum for just the building construction bonds. So those are the types of decisions that as a board, you need to discuss if you're going to look at
Okay.
a long-term plan for buildings.
So I've got, again, a series of things that
Sure.
over this, thank you for it. I mean, it's lovely, but I've asked a dozen times for option 4, which I did put in my survey. All of our vacant buildings throughout Kane County should be explored. And there's no reporting on those vacant properties as an option, which means we have not explored that option. And that to me is very disappointing. You don't have to respond to that, but that's an issue that you, and pretty much everybody that I've talked to knows is an issue for me. So I'm just gonna leave that there. That still has not been explored. Secondarily, we have a covenant on that property north of 38. Have we addressed that?
No.
Those are things that we're gonna have to think about. Also, as it pertains to the health department, obviously, I believe that the health department is a priority. So you're taking our health department from our most populous locations, and you're going to consolidate that into a central location, which sounds good in theory, except for you're taking, I'm Aurora, so I'm familiar with Aurora, and Elgin is very similar in mileage. So you're taking approximately 230,000 residents in Kane County. I mean, it's less than that, but probably more. Within 5 miles, they can get to the health department. You're taking that to 14 miles, whether it's Elgin or Aurora. And you're also removing a substantial transportation obstacle, because there is so much more transportation in Aurora. I mean, it takes a minute to get in your car. For me, it takes me 35 minutes to get here. So you're now pushing it to 14 miles for people that, I'm just throwing this out there, that I don't agree with this. I don't like it. I don't want to put it there, because the populace, the highest population areas are now being asked to drive, get to, walk, bicycle, bus, Uber, another 10 miles. And I think there's a different option for that, which is that 4th option that has not been explored or reported on. So, to Ms. Juby's point about being kind of like, shoot it in one direction, that's not, I didn't take that as like offensive, but I do know psychologically that's how stuff works, right? I mean, we all know that. So I don't like to be shooted, 1, and 2, I haven't been quiet about my opinions, and I think other people have said very similar things. And I feel like those issues have not been addressed. And it might be difficult to address them. It might be uncomfortable to address them, but I've asked for them and I still haven't gotten them. And I need that. Because if I don't have that, I'm a solid, absolutely freaking not. You know what I mean? So, I don't know what discussion needs to happen offline on that, but what I'm looking at is an obstacle to the people in my district. So, although that's my 2 cents. I mean, I get the vision. I get the long term. I get it's going to happen a long time from now, but then we have a time crunch and we have this. So what's a long time and what's a time crunch? To me, those don't equate. And this is a big deal. This is a big decision. We've got a lot of thinking to do. And I just don't feel like I've got the information that I've asked for. And it's frustrating to me. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any?
Love you all.
No?
Yeah, I'm done.
We'll come back. Mr. Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Ford. The health department is one of my concerns, is that
reaching the largest two parts of the population. I don't think it'll work so well for an entity like that to be in one central location. But for a different reason, I would like to see a list of the other properties that the county has, but not as an option for what we're trying to do. It's just that at some point, we have to figure out what of these assets are worth keeping and which ones are not. Why are we holding on to so much property? And what is a benefit? Then two, actually three, it's not uncommon for a consultant, and that's what they for as a consultant, to say, this is what I think your best offer is, our best idea is. And we don't like it, we just change it. But there's one thing in mind that we should keep. And that is when it comes to this facility, this area, not certainly this facility itself, but this area and Fabian, what does the tax dollar look like if we turn this back over? What we keep talking about, we just had it right there on the map. This 3% of commercial that's feeding our tax income. We got to change that. If we keep holding on to all these properties, when do we put forth the effort to make a difference in that? And to me, it starts with getting rid of or finding a better use for the properties we holding on to. To me, this facility this area right here is one of the dominant. Riverwalk, the river, it's right next to Geneva downtown. The tax dollars this can bring in could probably come close to paying for what we're trying to build. Fabian, I've said it from day one. If you look at what's there, it's a sports complex. Ladies and gentlemen, we are missing out on one of the biggest actions that take place throughout the United States with sports activities, not just at no professional level. It's at what they call AAU, and there's other entities out there. And I've had the pleasure of myself and my kids being involved in these after school sports or summertime sports, and then adults. I was foolish enough to think that I could still compete at an older age, but it was fun traveling across the United States. And the money that people spend, what happens in those areas. I mean, I've been to Bloomington where the whole town is turned out several times. So we're really missing out on the value of what we're holding on to. For what reason, it doesn't make sense to me. We keep talking about economic development. Well, let's get to it. And it's going to start with us getting rid of or making better use. I shouldn't say getting rid of, because maybe people don't like that term, making a better use out of the properties that we keep holding on to. Until when? 2050? You know, but that 3% we got to work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. Tepe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tepe here. First off, I want to thank everybody who worked on this for doing in my mind, a very, very commendable job. Okay. Whether or not I agree with all of the details or not, I'm really impressed at the logic that was used to come back with this. And to me, it's not so much the long range aspect of it. It's more the matter of what can be done within a reasonable time period. Now, I'm pretty certain that if I were to summarize what the immediate needs are, that the top two priorities are, one, the health department, and two, the expansion of the judicial center.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, did you do any rough estimates on how long that might take just to make those two happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think a project like a health department, you know, if you're ready to go on the project, you could do design in less than a year, and construction of a facility like that might be, you know, on the order of a year and a half. For judicial center, a little bit bigger project, I would plan probably year and a half for design, programming and design to make sure you've got that set right. And construction on that might be a little closer to 2 years or a little over.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well,
Let me just follow. Apologies first to my colleague because her points are valid. Her frustration is understandable. Process is important. So I suppose my frustration just stems from having been through this process for nearly 20 years now, not quite as long as Roger. So again, apologies. We've had this same discussion so many times, and we now have examples of how not being ready has cost us great opportunities. We've gone ahead and gone through historically low, rates in financial markets that we should have been able to take advantage of and didn't. There has been a process for a very long time. We have looked at these properties. I'm pretty sure Roger can tell you about a list of properties that we hold throughout the county. These remaining sites here as assets. I agree with Mr. Ford that, our view there should really be to, being prepared to market those and capitalize on those to defray costs of doing these other things. And while this plan has a placeholder for health, maybe this is not the final version or the best answer. Maybe it really does have to be split into two, a north and south location. In this mix that Jason has talked about, he talks about satellite locations. He talks about Aurora and Elgin, and maybe that is one that shifts to those. We will never get to a time where everybody in the county, all of our tax-paying constituents, will be happy to talk about spending money. Not ever. And yet the needs will still exist. And as Roger already pointed out, over the last 20 or 30 years, we have spent money and built things and fixed things. It doesn't stop. We're just trying to do it in a better planned, more purposeful way so that we create something that will last us for 50 to 100 years. And if we don't get to a point where we can agree on a policy and a concept that's ready so that you do still have to spend some money. I know that's been in the discussion recently. If you're going to spend this much money, it's like, yes, projects this big, engineering, concept plans, phase one, yes, it costs money. And you do that as an investment so that you're ready when opportunity comes along. And here we are still, we just can't seem to get over that hump and do this. These needs have been there all along. And when we don't get ourselves ready, we find occasionally ourselves being boxed into having to make decisions that don't have all the flexibility, that we would like to have. And then we still have to do them and move forward. If we could get on board with something like this and be prepared, we could stop doing it that way and ultimately serve the taxpayers in a much better fashion, and it will last for generations.
all right, thank you. I got a couple hands here.
Go to Bill Ross.
You to fill in something, either one of you first,
Just
Roger,
in
then?
general, I think we've collected all of this feedback, which one of the questions I had was, the policy decision or the resolution to adopt the plan would come from this committee. So we can go back and redress these and bring them back in, all of the issues, and have another discussion about that to try and hone in on what the committee recommendation is for the master plan. I think that's fine and healthy. Some of the things we've addressed in different ways, and we could talk about, like, to what degree do you address something like vacant buildings? Because we've kind of addressed what the cost of acquisition or purchasing a building would be and what the demolition and remodeling costs are per square foot. We can kind of show you what those look like. And it's comparable to building a new building that would be sited in a place that's very likely ideal for us versus someplace where maybe is arbitrary where you find the building. Maybe you get lucky and you find a building that's adjacent to a government campus, but we've talked through a lot of those. So I don't think those are a stretch to kind of demonstrate what that looks like. The health department, specifically, I think everything is included, the concept of satellite offices in Aurora and Elgin for services. And then also, the health department itself, in many ways is almost a community advisor, academic, educational. And a lot of their work, is not as much customers coming through the door. Maybe it will be in the future. And that's something that, we would need to understand for a central large campus, satellite offices. But I don't think we've abandoned the idea of health in Aurora, or Elgin. I don't want anybody to think that. It's certainly been, kind of at the front of our mind. I will tell you that when I started, the health department was in Geneva, and they had an office at 1330 Highland, and they had one in downtown Elgin. They still have an office in Elgin. It's a lease space. And we still have 1330 Highland and 1240 Highland in Aurora. The building that was centrally located was demolished. It was the 6th Street School. When they did that, almost all of the employees and everybody that were here were arguing that we should keep it centralized and that they didn't want to go down to Aurora. So it was interesting at that time. Kind of the anti thesis of this was, keep the main health department central and keep the satellite offices. But here we find ourselves, the health department's in Aurora, in a building that we purchased and tried to renovate or put it into use. And we all know what the current circumstances are of that building. So we have that experience. Satellite options are still viable. As far as holding assets, we can address that as well. There's been discussion about selling properties over the years, and we've had broker opinions of value. We could bring some of those back to give you an idea of what those properties might bring in if you sold them. I think there's a good question about what the likely use is and whether it would generate sales, incomes for people, or what types of revenue in the secondary world of a building and business would bring versus the property itself. We've had those conversations, but we could bring some information about that. I got the boundary agreement, the annexation agreement. We do need to have some more follow through on utilities. That's a big question at the Judicial Center campus, between the water and wastewater, especially, also electricity. But we can put that all together to kind of redress all of those. But ultimately, I would like to get the recommendation from this body to take it through the committee process to say, this is what we're recommending as administration responsible for all the facilities and buildings of the county. This is what we want. So.
So, Mr. Chair,
I'm gonna let Mr. Roth talk.
I just,
I would come back.
I guess I'll call it the $100 million question. I didn't see any expectation of costs. I know because you're doing it in phases, I would actually like to see it. Like, here's the cost for just the public health or all the others, if we're going to do it in a phased approach. Have you done that at all? I know it's a rough estimate.
Yeah, we've done some preliminary estimates. Some of it is we're trying to make an evaluation. I mean, we can put an estimate together in present day dollars. It's not clear yet timing of when to execute projects. So,
And I understand that.
you'd have to apply an escalation factor. But yeah, certainly we've been working through some of that. I think even at the last committee workshop, we presented some rough order of magnitude for the various options for the government center.
Right.
But yeah, we can bring back a full list of projected, at least current projected costs.
Because, I know a lot of people are comparing, and looking at costs for that. And so I think we just.
I think we had an overview of just broad, this one was going to be 110, this was 107.
Exactly. That's
They're
all I,
fairly ballparkish
Yeah.
sort of thing.
thank
And
you.
we were, Ms. Gums.
thank you, Mr. Chair Gums. Just thanks, Roger. We actually agree on most everything, I think, except for we're coming from a different angle. And I just wanted to let you know, when I bring these things up to you guys, it's because we have a vision for the health department that is not what it is now, right?
Absolutely.
So we've addressed mental health, and we're going to be adding these things with our vision. And that's where my passion for that comes from, why they can't be centralized, because we're going to remove that option from so many people. And I just don't think it's doable now. So if Jason comes and finds, and this is why I need this information, if you find a building that's suitable, let's say, and you can go in and make it like the most beautiful Taj Mahal satellite health department, we want you to do that. Or I want you to do that. But to suggest that if our vision is to get 515,000 people in a central location and then add all these wonderful benefits, that's not feasible to me. I mean, it's feasible, it's just not suitable. That's where I'm coming from. So I mean,
Yeah,
do you know where my heart's coming from on this?
Yeah, very much understand your perspective. And I think, it's tricky. I think Roger made a good point. I mean, several years back, the county made a decision to move a little bit away from more of the direct client and clinical service side of the health department to where it is a little bit more policy related and other functions. And the thinking behind trying to centralize it is, there's been a lot of discussion about expanded mental health services and that, and we're trying to find an opportunity where you've got a piece of property that gives you the ability to continue to expand and provide more services. And I think, mental health needs are not specific to any one location in the county. That's a countywide, statewide, nationwide issue right now. So I think the thinking around centralizing gives you the opportunity to have a primary footprint, continue to expand services to try to address the needs of all the county. There's still a pretty significant population in the Tri-Cities area here as well. And then through the use of the satellites, provide services in other population centers like Aurora and Elgin. So, and I think I appreciate Roger filling that in a little bit. I might have not been as clear on that, but you still have the opportunity to provide, however the health department continues to evolve, services direct to your constituents where they live in major population centers by having the satellites. It would incorporate health department space both in Aurora and Elgin. But we're trying to develop a primary footprint with the ability to expand services in other realms that you don't provide service in now. So trying to find that good balance to provide services to the whole of the county.
And that's it comes here, and if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go
That's
ahead.
kind of what that's kind of what I'm getting at is, and I know you guys, we've had long meetings, so I'm sorry. But that's kind of what I'm getting at is, yes, it's covering the entire county, but we have to recognize that our county has populace in certain areas and not in other areas, right? So we have a populace in Elgin and we have a populace in Aurora. It's much higher.
Okay,
So I just want to keep that in mind and I will be done.
done the
You're
same
right.
here, Ms.
I'm-
Gum. So, and we
done.
appreciate the point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I don't want to weigh in either way, one way or the other, but I'll say that it is, as to Miss Juby's point over there, it is, are you hiding back? It is difficult. All of these discussions are difficult. Making a pinpoint thing and saying, okay, this is what they're recommending is difficult because then we'll analyze that and then figure it in with the other aspects that we have without discarding amongst the committee here and the points of view that we have. So I think this is a bold step forward to at least get a recommendation. And then we go, as Roger said, it's a policy thing from here. So we will have more discussions on this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Roger again. So one of the questions I would have is, do you want to, I mean, we do have the time for constraints for meetings. Would it be reasonable to request a special meeting for the admin to go through some of these other options instead of, because we're this meeting,
Yeah.
we're gonna
I would see,
extended play.
because this is, we're just saying, okay, here's this. Now
Sure.
we want to have more input. So
Yeah,
I
to
think
get
that
more
would
into
be-
the policy drafting.
is that a consensus from were we okay with that? Then we'll work out a time to have a special
Okay,
committee meeting and then address more of the things besides what our presentation was this morning.
I like it.
okay.
Well, okay. Any other comments? Did you have anything to finish up on? Thank you for all your work on this. Thank you to Kevin and the rest of the staff there, not here. And so we'll move on then to the regularly scheduled agenda here, which is executive report.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, this is Roger. I'm gonna defer my time till the budget presentation and go through that. And if I don't know if there's we can make an amendment to the agenda. We have the sheriff here for 9I.
Okay.
And we have a lot of other resolutions, so I didn't know.
I
if
would,
you'd
with
want
the
to take that
consent
out of
of
order.
the committee, I'd like to have the sheriff move up.
Yes.
So that's okay with you? Then I will then move to this resolution I, which is authorizing the Kane County Sheriff's Office new administration wing project and budget rollover. That's moved by,
Gums,
yep, Gums.
what page? What page is this?
This is on the third page of the. Or second page, excuse me. Yeah, second page. It's the top of the second page.
58 in the packet.
What is it? The information is not in the
Yeah,
agenda.
His resolution is 58 starts.
Okay. And so moved by Gums, second by Ford. All right. Then Roger, do you want to? address this
Mr.
and then
Sheriff is here. If you
go
want
to
to
the
start
sheriff?
or you want?
Sure,
me-
Roger.
Go ahead.
And thank you for yet another smart move this morning and giving us that updated time slot. Much appreciated. So this is a conversation I've been having with the board for the better part of the last 5 years about how we make good use of our unused open space at the sheriff's office. And obviously that's a precious commodity here at Kane County. We went from a treatment center concept to, other office offerings to the public defender to even the state's attorney walking through, and everybody's kind of turned it down. So about 9 months ago, Chief of Staff Kaddish here and I did a walkthrough of our front foyer. And if you've been to the sheriff's office, you walk in our front doors, you look to the right and you see these beautiful windows that look out over the lake and the courthouse, and it's never used. So currently, our administrative offices are kind of buried in the central part of the sheriff's office. It's kind of dark and draconian, if you will. My view is a large air conditioning unit. So our concept was we could move the administration side of the office to be more welcoming, to be more opening, and receive county board members, to other police officials, to other dignitaries up in the main part of our office area, and have a more aesthetic location that is more modern than what we have now. With the Kane County Forensics Lab that is moving in, that's going to be the three-way partnership between the coroner, state's attorney's office, and the sheriff's office. That's moving into my building as well. So yet another physical location crunch without having to do much build out. So what this will allow us to do is basically take our current administration area, move it to the front of the office with more modern tech and facility, and allow us to expand both of our civilian operations and our investigation operations into what is now the current admin area. So it allows us to kind of spread out our footprint and make better use of our space. Another essential part of this project is updating our security infrastructure at the sheriff's office. It's in bad need of updating. And I won't go into too much further on that in open session, just for, again, security reasons. But about 9 months ago, at the end of the last fiscal year, I had a conversation with then Finance Director Joe Onzik about how we could potentially finance this. And I noted that we had about a $500,000 rollover from our court security budget. We were $500,000 under budget in FY22. And I said, hey, Joe, what do you think about us earmarking that for this project and rolling it into reserves for now? He thought that would be a good idea and the best use of funds since it was from our rollover. So of course, we began the architectural rendering process. We internally paid for the architectural rendering. Once we finally got it to where it was, which took a few months, we went out to RFP, and we have made the selection of the company noted in the resolution here. And I think Roger wanted to talk just a little bit more on the final financial rolling of the project.
Thank you, Sheriff.
So this is
Mr.
Roger
Bontoc.
again. Yeah, so I was aware of the conversation with the former finance officer, Joe Onzik, and actually also Erica Wagner was involved with the funds from 2022 to 2023. So the funds we confirmed with the current finance officer, Kathy Hopkinson, that the money is sitting in the fund balance. Then the only question was whether or not we had the right fiscal notation to move the money or to put it into an expense budget. And at present, with the amount of time left in the fiscal year, we think there's adequate money in the fiscal budget to do this project. But what we're going to need to do is make the adjustment for the fiscal budget for 2024, because that's probably when most of the actual invoices will be coming in. So we need to work with finance at the finance committee to make sure that the money is appropriated and adjusted into the current year's budget and 2024 budget. But Kathy Hopkinson from finance, she's aware of all of this. So there will be some changes to the fiscal notation, but the money is in the capital fund and it's available for this project. So
And that was the 669. 624
669-624.
on page 5960. Okay, any questions then for either the sheriff or Roger on this one item? I'll go Juby first.
I just had a comment last time, tagged the angry woman who always says no. This was really exciting to see, and I just had a quick question. With the timeline, you're thinking now that it's already gone out for bid, that it's gonna be about a 5-month timeline for you?
Chief Step.
Thing. So, okay.
Relatively.
Ed Kaddish, will you speak into the, Ed,
it's-
speak into the mic?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's,
Sorry.
we've been told it's relatively a 5 to 6 month completion date. We have to start out with some demolition and then it's really not a too much of a complicated project. The existing HVAC rooftop unit's already there. We're going to be changing some zones, some different thermostat conditions and some bathrooms. Other than that, we anticipate the project will move forward very quickly.
Yes.
Just a lot of framing.
Thank you.
demolition. So
Check with Henry on the HVAC.
we did.
Your chair comes.
And then, Mr. Young had,
I had the same question, but I don't think you're an angry woman, Ms. Julie. So
oh, you,
you just ask good questions.
that's right. Angrily. Speaking of pleasant, Ms. Gums, did you have a comment?
Are you angry?
I'm not angry. I was angry yesterday.
She loves us.
I do love you. I do have an amendment to make.
Yes.
Sure.
My amendment is on page 59
Mhm.
in the now therefore be it resolved. I would like that amendment to read that now therefore be it resolved by the King County Board that the chairman of the board is authorized and directed to execute a contract. So the only addition is and directed. That's my motion.
I'll second.
So that was a motion by Gums, second by Young.
Yeah.
Did you, a recording secretary? Or you like the standard format now?
Will that be the standard format going forward?
I
just wanna
believe
make sure
so,
we're not
yeah.
Missing something.
I think
there.
we
Authorize
request
and
that.
direct them? Okay.
Are we voting on the amendment or are we voting on
The
the
amendment,
entire?
or, well,
You have to vote on the amendment.
let's do the
and then
amendment. It's
we
not
have-
that fast. As long as you've got it right, okay? We'll
On
just
the
call for
amendment?
Amendment.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Board, yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
QBI.
Caius.
Yes.
And I apologize. There'll be quite a few of those.
Okay, the next will be, and
I
we can do
will-
this a friendly amendment from now on. The,
As amended.
or as, yeah, okay, now the motion as amended. Aye.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford. Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Young,
Yes.
Juby,
Yes.
Caius.
Guys, yes. Motion passes. Thank you for being here, Sheriff.
Thank you. Oh, and thank you for answering that question, that crappy question.
What?
You're welcome to stay, if you want.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Chief Kaddish is going to stay with you. I will stay.
He has a dentist appointment.
Run. How much space? was this? How much space was this?
Okay,
Yesterday.
then moving back to, we've done your report, right, Roger? We're done with that one.
Yeah, so
You're
We're
gonna
up
do that
to
later. Okay,
Mr.
then,
Thompson.
we'll go to, Henry Thompson, Building Management, for the resolutions. May I have a motion and a second ratifying a emergency purchase affidavit to purchase a 2023 Ford Escape Hybrid for the Building Management Department. Moved by Ford, second by,
Get rid of it.
I think I heard a cat. What was that? Who was the second?
Probably was a cat.
Juby? Was seconded?
I'll second. I don't know what I'm seconding, but.
Oh.
Emergency.
The hybrid.
It's an emergency
Oh, it's an emergency
Oh,
purchase.
he-
Boy, I love those.
It's a hybrid.
Oh, maybe we need a
Set me
different.
up. Way to go.
Any questions?
Comes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, comes.
I'd like to make an amendment.
35.
Okay, amended.
It can't be 30.
And this is page 36.
36.
And then now therefore be it resolved by the King County Board that the chairman therefore is hereby authorized and directed to execute. So the additional word of and directed is the amendment. That is my motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Who seconded it? You can't do it, Rod.
Ford.
Ford.
Sorry to belabor.
Is there any way we can stipulate that in all the
The
resolutions
rest
on
of
our
them will,
agenda
the
today?
rest of them will do it. Yeah.
No.
Do it as a friendly amendment or something.
The answer to that question at this point is no.
Oh, sorry. We have no
Mr.
state's attorney here
Chairman.
that qualifies.
The first one is ratifying a purchase of a vehicle by emergency purchase affidavit.
Yep.
It's already been purchased, so
Already
we're just
bought.
asking for the ratification of it. So I don't know if
We don't need to.
the
do that.
amendment is worded for this or not, but
Well, standing or operating procedure according to some of us on this committee. So let's go with it.
Not
It
on-
won't affect, it
where
won't,
would you
it won't
inject it?
put it.
was just gonna comment. We're on page 34. 36 is the next one. So 34 doesn't have that wording to
Oh,
authorize.
yes. See? Strike that. I'll wait.
Just
For
wanna
page
make sure we're-
36.
Know what we're
Yes.
adding.
Nope, I got it. 10-4 on that one.
If it's legal.
I have no amendment for page 34.
No amendment, okay.
Okay.
With Blair.
It's been suggested that we add these in between we vote them through and then suggested they be added without the extra amendment to the resolution when it appears in the next committee. Is that possible?
We can edit it.
Without having to go through the voting twice to?
No.
complete votes on it?
Then they'll have to go through the voting
Can't do that.
twice.
And they'll have to, I mean, it has to happen eventually.
Well, that would happen between now and then, and the wording would be changed on the next one. Can we allow that?
The wording cannot be changed without a vote,
I'm taking your word for it.
right? Like when you make an amendment to the language in the therefores, it must be voted on. But it's not a typo.
Not typo.
Yeah.
Okay, where were we?
We're on page 34.
34.
Or
An item
Of
for the
600.
emergency purchase, and it's been seconded, and then we're going to vote on the amendment.
Roger.
I'll,
We're not doing the.
There is no amendment.
I
on
don't
there.
believe the
Not on
first one.
this
You,
one.
you just need to motion and second for the
There's-
emergency purchase affidavit and
So,
the
so
vote.
comes, I rescind my motion because it was the wrong
oh,
resolution.
I see. Okay.
Because this one's already happened.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. Thank you, Roger.
Charles.
Roll call, please.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Comes, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Yeah,
Caius.
Guys, yes. We have motion and second for the resolution authorizing a contract for Kane County Generator Maintenance Services. Moved by
Young.
Young, second by
Gums.
Gums.
Mr. Chair, Gums has an amendment.
Discussion, amendment. Ms. Gums, you have the floor.
Page 36. The amendment is to include the word, I don't know if you want me to repeat it all, but therefore be resolved by the county board that the chairman therefore is hereby authorized and directed to. The additional language of and directed to is the amendment, and that is my motion.
Second by
Young.
Young. Any discussion? Vote on the amendment. Roll call, please.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Caius.
Caius, yes.
Amended.
Can we have a roll call? So then,
Vote on the.
vote on
resolution.
the resolution, please.
Resolution as amended, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item
Mr.
C.
Chairman,
Item C,
I
yes.
I truly believe that it is within your purview to accept a motion from Ms. Gums for under item 9C through H, a single friendly amendment of that word to be added for that block of them. We could do that once, then we could just go through and vote on them as amended.
That was a suggestion about an official state's attorney will Any comments on? it? Is
Mr. Shepherd's online. Oh,
that
sorry.
something we can do, Mr. Shepro?
Ken?
Mr. Fonstock?
My other question for Ken is, since you no longer have really, you have to have a quorum in the room, I believe you can go back to voice vote, all in favor. That's Robert's Rules of Order.
We don't have a quorum?
You have
I think
cons-
for money, we have to have a roll call.
Wait. Yeah, we have to roll
was
call for money.
beyond-
Yeah, if you're spending.
Roll
money,
call
yeah.
for money, but thank you.
Yeah, that's not what it says.
Since we don't have a
Oh,
quorum, is that what you
we have a
said? We
quorum.
do have a quorum.
Good quorum,
Yeah, we have a quorum. Otherwise, we couldn't do any of this.
Yeah.
right.
I do believe you're pretty safe on the.
Okay.
Accepting a motion.
Well, we'll wait to
For you
Ken.
to change
We're not gonna wait for
the
Ken to get off the other
C through
line and come
H.
back to us. So
Good.
then I would accept a motion to adjust
What?
the language to insert those two words
No, not
on
money.
C through H.
So moved.
Second,
Second by
Young.
Young.
Oh,
Roll call, please. And this is to insert those two words into each and every one of B through H. Or C through H, whatever which one we're on.
See through.
C.
C through H.
I'm sorry, who seconded the amendment?
Young.
Mr. Young.
I had, yeah,
Well,
Davis and
Mr. Chair, in an effort for efficiency,
We're getting pretty efficient.
right? So,
Good
well,
mess us.
I'm gonna add efficiency here because there's more than six, like,
I figured we could go on and do the same thing for the block in under 10 and the block
Yes.
under 11. We'll segment them just a little bit, just to be safe, but I think
mine, Mark.
we can take.
Oh,
I think
he
we
already
can
did.
take
It's,
them in
this is,
bulk.
this is C through H. So we'll do C through H, then we'll just be able to
Okay,
vote on each
fair.
one of these. So then the vote is the roll call for the
Amendment.
resolution to amend each one of those to read, to insert those two words,
As directed.
which I'm sure you have by now. Sorry about that.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Comes, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
should be yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
all amended.
Okay, may I have motion and second authorizing a contract extension for a water testing firm for the Judicial Center campus with Phygenics Independent Water Management of Warrenville, moved by
Ford.
Ford, second by
Comes,
Davis.
Gums.
Yeah.
And
Gums.
then, is there any discussion? This would be, a vote would be to, pass this.
Mr. Chairman, Shepro?
Yes, Mr. Shepro.
Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. I had to log back in.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Okay.
So can you repose the question? Because I think you were on the right track.
Okay, well, as it is right now, we have, we had passed a motion and a second to insert the language on all of the resolutions that we had yet to address in item, or in section 9, which would have been C through H, to insert the language that Ms. Gums
authorized and directed to.
proposed.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think you've done that correctly.
Okay, then we will move on by doing them and passing them as amended. Is that correct?
Yes, they could just be deemed as all. You don't have to amend each one separately.
Okay, great, thank you. Then for that, we will have roll call on item C
Davis.
Item.
Davis,
as amended.
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Comes, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Should be I.
Yes, motion passes. We have motion and second authorizing contract extension for water operator for Judicial Center campus with Schaefer and Roland of Geneva, Illinois, moved by
Ford.
second by
Juby,
Juby. Any questions? Then the vote will be for this resolution as amended.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Comes, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
should be I.
Caius.
Yes. May I have a motion and a second authorizing contract for building management snow plowing services. Moved by
Davis moves.
Davis, second by
Comes,
Gums. Then is there any discussion? Then the vote would be on this resolution as amended to insert those two words.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Ruby, I.
Bias.
Yes. May I have a motion and a second authorizing contract for Kane County Electrical Services moved by
Gums,
Gums, second by
Davist,
Davist.
second.
Any questions? Then a vote would be for this resolution as amended previously. Roll call, please.
Davist,
Davis,
yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Ruby, I.
Bias.
Yes. May I have a motion and a second authorizing contract for fire protection services moved by
Gums,
Gums, second by
Davist,
Davist. Keep it simple. All right, then, any discussion? No discussion, then this vote would be to authorize the fire contract services as amended previously.
Davis,
Davist, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Ruby, I.
Bias.
Yes. We have a motion and a second authorizing additional expenditure funds for online marketplace and maintenance, repair and operations, MRO supplies, equipment.
Gums moves.
Moved by Gums, second by
Young.
Young. Any discussion? Vote for this would be voting for the resolution as amended previously.
Davis,
Davist, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Ruby, I.
Bias.
Yes.
Passes.
Then I would accept a motion from Gums to modify items in section 10A through F with the previous language. Second by
Davist,
Davist, Gums and Davist.
Same thing.
Any discussion? You're going to tell me what those two words were again, just for the
Authorized and directed, so the and directed.
author and directed
and direct.
and directed
Go with it.
and
Correct.
directed. I'm trying not to forget that. I'll wake up in the middle of the night with that. So moved by Gums, second by Davist. So this is to modify the A, B, C, D, E, F.
A
Do it.
doesn't need it.
It's in the
B, C, D, E, and F.
Yeah.
E and F.
Let's see what's.
Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Okay
yep.
with you?
He's already happened, so.
B,
yes,
C, D, and
B
F.
through F, yep.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Davist, yes.
Oh, B doesn't wait.
You have to be
Hang on.
called.
Oh, give her a
B-
minute.
B doesn't.
Davis, yes, Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
No, B doesn't need it
We
either.
changed it to B through F.
No, B doesn't need it.
B doesn't need it.
No, so let me go through and check and make sure C needs it as well.
We already added it to E and F, so it's in that one, those.
C doesn't need it.
You messed us up. You've already got it in some of them then?
It's in some of them.
Yeah, I've got page,
Well, we wouldn't add it
48,
twice, so what the heck?
51.
I know, but
Okay.
if the motion is to add it and it doesn't need to be added, we should clean it up now as long as we're going into marathon times.
Pretty sure Michelle said added as needed.
Oh, did you
Is it-
say as needed?
yes, I did.
That was-
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No, I
missed
did.
it. Yes,
That's my
yes, yes.
second.
Okay, so it's
Missed the as
modified.
needed. All
Is
right.
that a headache for you, Savannah? You ready to listen to this?
We're
again
missing.
sometime?
I just have no idea what I'm adding it to. That's my,
Any of them that don't have that language?
got it.
Like she said.
Mr.
Sorry.
As needed.
All right, so are we amending then?
So we're
None of
amending
these
those that need it
No.
in section 10.
None of them need it.
I think we owe you lunch.
Yeah.
Davist, still
I think
yes.
she's gonna
Fine,
leave
you're no
now.
All right, Davis,
Yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Ruby, I.
Bias.
Yes, aren't you glad you hung around, Ed? No, okay.
Oh, we don't need that.
So then we're going to do item, what would, if we,
We're
then
moving
we're gonna
on.
do item A. May I have a motion and second ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase a 2023 Ford Escape Hybrid for the Information Technology Department, moved by Ford, second by
Ruby,
Juby. A vote for this is a vote for this. It doesn't need to be modified
That's information technology.
for this resolution. Could we have roll call,
Got it.
please?
Davis,
Davist, yes.
Ford, Ford,
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Should be yes.
Pius.
Guys, yes. May I
Mr.
have-
Chairman, is Mr. Shepro still online?
I am.
Ken,
Yeah.
with the permission of the chairman of the committee, may we also go ahead and move 10, well, we've already done A, B through F in their entirety as a block?
Yes.
I thought so. Unless there's
There's
objection,
no
unless everybody
objection.
wants, unless everybody wants to hear each one of them read out,
We already did that.
we can move them all.
The only time I-
Oh, that's the amendment. I'm talking about moving them as
The
amended now.
contract.
You can move them all at once.
I move it.
Boom. I second.
Boom.
So that was move those all
B through F.
B through F.
Yep.
Gums
Yes.
This is great.
and Davist.
Yep.
Look at us getting more efficient.
After we've killed an hour.
Okay, this vote would
Sorry.
be for, to pass all of the resolutions. Expenditure of funds for multifunction copier devices, services goods, print goods, and service renewal, authorizing expenditure of funds for copiers, printers, and related services renewal, authorizing expenditure of funds for copiers, printers, and related service renewal. Those are like double. And also the authorizing expenditure of funds for network storage and services, and then authorizing expenditure of funds for computer hardware, software, and services. Any discussion?
As amended.
As amended as needed.
Oh, you're at the top of your game now.
Okay, well, I'm hoping we got Savannah along with us here. Did we lose you? We still okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ward, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Should be aye.
Pius.
Yes. Section 11, Mill Creek SSA. May I have a motion and a second to authorize the extension of the landscape maintenance service for the Mill Creek Special Service Area. Moved by,
Do we need to,
I don't know, do these have those in there? This is
Yes,
something,
they do. I mean, they would need it.
yeah, so I'm gonna make the same motion
okay, I'm recognized.
as directed
Gums,
And directed.
and directed
And directed.
and directed
recognize Ms. Gums'
needed.
motion
as
to,
needed.
to do as needed, modifying A through D to read,
And that
Have a
is, number-
second.
add and directed. And Davis will second. Then
Davis?
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ward, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Should be aye.
Pius.
Guys, yes.
Amended.
So those will be modified as needed. Then can I move all four at the same time?
Yes.
Then I. will
Yes.
Davis moves
move.
items 11A, B, C, and D.
Ward second.
As amended.
As amended.
If needed.
Ended as needed. Daviston Ford. Then this, a vote for this would be to authorize extension of landscape maintenance for Mill Creek. Authorize Mill Creek Parkway Tree Installation Services Contract. Authorize extension for concrete lifting repair services. And authorize an agreement for Mill Creek Special Service Area Snow Plowing Services.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ward, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Young,
Young, yes.
Juby,
Should be aye.
Pius.
Caius, yes.
All passed.
Anything on vehicles?
And then we just
Done.
bought a bunch of them.
We've been buying.
We just did at least two, right?
Nothing on vehicles? No, is there any new business? Any comments from the board members? Any old business? Oh, now, the budget presentation.
Mr. Chair, how much time have we allotted for this? Do you have any idea?
Oh, 5 or 10 minutes,
We're gonna do a reading of every, no. I'm just kidding.
right? That 20-page thing in there, he has to read it item
No,
by item.
I'm, thank you for that, yeah.
Well, I think the previous committee did it in about 10 minutes or something.
So Blair, if you could bring up the slides.
Whatever you need,
for the
Roger.
budget
We're here for you.
presentation.
Yeah, I'm not rushing you. I just.
This will be a
another-
high level overview, and I will preface that with that there are still many things that are in progress and being worked on. And that being said, it's one of the larger budgets for a department. And we do have a lot of moving parts with personnel. So just to kind of preface the budget process, and I want to thank Kathy Hopkinson, Amy Raymer Holmes. They've been working with us on this. In the beginning, when they did the budget process, they asked us to look at a rollover of 2023 to 2024. And that was with the current employed personnel and vacant positions removed. So in that interim time, you have a lot of moving parts. We've hired people. We have vacancies. We're trying to hire people. So the initial review and the vacancies, that part we're still working through. And then there's the question of if we want or if we are requesting new or additional positions. So some of those things are still being discussed and figured out. I'll just preface the presentation with that. The other part that is important, we're looking at line items that are compared to actuals, what we could adjust down. In particular, Kathy had asked us about looking at our utilities budgets because those were relatively under compared to what was budgeted. So we're working with Kathy and their team on that. But this will be a high level overview. We're going to talk about the building management department's budget, the IT department's budget, the GIS department's budget, and the Mill Creek SSA. So those are topics of the day. So this is our structure. We're under the administration committee, and they've renamed the departments to the Information Technologies and Building Management Department. Under that, we have the IT department, the Building Management Department, GIS, and Mill Creek SSA. Within that, there's divisions of those where we silo and group people into different types of work. We have Charles Lasky, who's here. He basically runs day-to-day activities of the IT department. We have Henry Thompson, who's running the building management department. Tom Nikowski took a back row seat. He's back there, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
For GIS. And then the Mill Creek SSA has a coordinator, but Brooke Roth and myself work on that. So I just wanted to introduce those people. If you have questions about the individual budgets, they might be able to answer in greater detail. So we might defer to some of them. So this, you don't have to read all of this, but this is just a description of the services, high level, that we provide. And I provided a handout, but this is something that we've used in the past just to kind of give people an overview of all the different things that we touch upon and that we work on. And we can give you the full memo version of this if you'd like. The building management department budget with Henry Thompson. This is the total revenue. We don't have a lot of revenue. This is based on leases and licenses for use of different spaces. Think of the farmland property that we lease out to someone for doing agriculture on, or the space at 3rd Street Courthouse that's used for arbitration. We also have CASA, and then we have the tower at Fabian Parkway. So there's not a lot of lease revenue. It's $50,000. Salary and wages, you'll notice that from the columns you have are 2022 amended, 2023 amended, and then there's 2023 actual, and then 2024 with the second review. We chose that. I chose that to discuss because I firmly believe that the vacancies we have need to be filled. And I think we may have one or two at this time, but so when you look at salaries and wages using the 2024 second review number, we're at a net negative $24,720. That's simply between hiring and rehiring people, whether you hire them back at the exact same salary, less, more, the net difference is $24,720. Keep in mind that that does not include some of the additional salaries and things that we're looking to request. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The contractual services line item, you'll notice that it went up by 716,000 and the commodities went down by 716,000. This is a shift from commodities, utilities costs to put the costs correctly into the building improvements budget. We buy transformers, electrical equipment, infrastructure for heating and cooling and other things related to lowering our utility costs and lowering our equipment or replacing our equipment. I think in the past, under previous administrations, they'd actually funded some of that through utilities budgets. So what we're trying to do is accurately reflect our electric utilities. So we lowered that and increased building improvements. We're still looking at the electric utilities because based on our actuals versus budgeted, we're coming in remarkably lower than what we anticipated. Our concern is that it's lower because there were front-end credits when we assumed new electric contracts. And when we signed up for these utilities, there are some months where our bills were unusually low. We're trying to get through all of that to see if we can get a good solid projection for next year. And I will just tell you that for the utilities and commodities, we're somewhere between an adjustment of $0 and maybe $400,000 less. So that's kind of the ballpark that we've been talking with Kathy about. Once we get that number and we work with Kathy, obviously the electric utility bill, to the county's credit, would just put more money in play for the general fund budget. It's not that we would transfer it off to someplace else. It would just be lowering our utility budget. So the net difference, the total budget for salary, wages, contractual services, and commodities right now, as it stands, we're at a net negative 24,720 in the second review. Okay, the caveat, we're going to be changing things. We still have a lot of work to do. Like I said, we received the second review reports, I think Thursday night. And I think most of us were actually off on Friday. So we had Monday and Tuesday, and the agenda was due last Wednesday. So just kind of preface how much information we could get through in that short period of time. But the budget notes are important. So salaries and wages decreased, but we're working on a proposal for some additional maintenance techs. And I think we're looking at two, possibly maybe more, but two primarily. And this would be for the second shift and evening coverage for the jail and juvenile center. We don't have shift schedules for maintenance. So we do all of our maintenance during the day, and at night it's an on-call basis. And it's been very difficult to maintain the 24-hour-a-day buildings with on-call status for maintenance. And then we also have about 1 million square feet of buildings that require painting. You notice this campus, we've had this campus under the works of our new painter for some time. This is just, one set of buildings, but we believe we could use 2 or 3 additional painters. We're going to be proposing that as well. If you do not paint these buildings, they just continue to go into a state of degraded condition. And the painting seems to help preserve a lot of the asset. The last piece is the cleaning staff, and I know that was asked about earlier. We currently have a contract with Peterson Cleaning, and we've been working through that with the public safety and the judiciary and also the juvenile center. We've been asked by all of the offices if we would consider bringing cleaning services in-house and using county staff to do that. In order to do that, you would have to have a transition period between the cleaning companies and staffing, because we can't hire people overnight and train them. We were looking to start in the Judicial Center campus with this transition. So right now the budget has the cleaning contracts in it. We do not have the staffing for the personnel, but you're looking at a marginal increase to staff it internally versus contracting it. And I'll tell you that the net difference is that you need the same number of bodies essentially to do the cleaning. We'd have to buy the materials and so the county offers, a benefits package that would be probably far exceed what they get from any cleaning company. And so we have to consider wages, benefits, and total cost of employing people to clean. So what we're working on is that as a part of this budget to propose it. Now, there's no guarantees. We understand that the fiscal constraints of the budget will probably take precedence over anything that we would recommend. But at the same time, it's important to know that the judge's office, the sheriff's office, juvenile center have all expressed that they've had issues with various cleaning contractors, with conduct, no-show, behavioral things. And it's one of those things where if we had direct supervision and they were employees, they feel that we would get a better level of service and a better responsible, more responsive group of people. Plus redirecting the staff for cleaning right now is up to the cleaning company. So we have to call the cleaning company get their manager to agree to make changes, then they send it back down the food chain and try to make those changes locally. And the response time has been slow. We've had days where we have had trouble getting resources to clean. And sometimes it's just because we can't redirect them on our own. They're not our employees. So I know this comes.
Oh, sorry.
Really quick question. So
Question comes.
I'm just, the benefit of that seems like we could do shift work. Shift work would be,
You could, yeah, and there's a question of whether or not you have as many people to cover as the
course,
cleaning,
but-
or do you do overtime? Or do you, you know,
Well-
those types of things?
that way you don't have, your call outs and emergencies, which,
Yeah.
happen all the time, I'm sure.
For janitorial, maybe not as much maintenance, yes. We want to limit the amount of on-call for maintenance. It's been detrimental to staff morale. That's all I want to say. If
Okay,
you get
thanks.
called at 2 a.m. on a holiday, it's rough. Ask Ed, he knows. So janitorial services is still in play. Contractual services increased for building improvements. I think Henry and his team have done a great job. We've been working on improving the buildings this year. In the current performance budget, you'll see that, we've overspent our building improvement budget and balanced it across other lines. And we just want to make that correction and adjust the contractual services up to accommodate that. Commodities will decrease based on electric utilities going down. So that's kind of the overview for building management.
I have a question
Yes,
before
sure.
you go on. Blair, could you put up our packet and go to page 453? I know we're not going in the weeds, but I just had a question.
Sure.
So a 2023 actual amount on utilities for water was 65,000
Yes.
and you're budgeting 360.
Yes.
Why?
So the water utilities, a lot of times those are coming in quarterly or less frequently. And we'll get charges for infrastructure and water at different times. And it's very difficult at mid-year to project the final costs. We could adjust those down. What I would say is that if you adjust them down and they come over that, we have to pay our water bill. And that's what we were talking with Kathy about, was if you adjust them down, just realize that they're real bills. You're going to end up
No, I was just
paying them.
I was just questioning why there's $300,000 more
Yeah.
that you're budgeting for. I don't understand how that has anything to do with the time.
Which one?
So it's
Okay.
it's the line under utilities. The last digits are 60100. And you had, last year's actual was $65,127.03.
Yeah.
And you're asking for $363,439. And I just don't understand why that would be like the toilet paper thing that's $10 a roll.
96 cases.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
Got that answer to the crappy question.
Oh.
Am I reading it wrong?
This is Charles Lasky. One thing that was done with the building management budget, and I'd have to go back and look, is it used to be the building management budget was split. So it was split by building, so that the 001.80.80 was just a portion. What we did with the budget amendment last year and then what we did this year was combine all that. So we had things being spent out of different buildings that weren't necessarily from that building. So that may just be the accumulation of all the water being put under one line. So I'd have to go look at that.
Yeah.
But we did have them all split among 8 different lines, and this year now they're all combined into one.
Okay.
I would add that to the electric utility question that we have too, because if you look at electric utilities, at one point in time, there was an adjustment based on the rate. And they increased the utilities by, I think it was 74%. And it was kind of at the end of the 11th hour last year for the budget, we were negotiating utility contracts. And I think Joe, in making the final adjustments, added it. So we certainly can go back and revisit it. There's no reason to budget excess for utilities. If we can project it closely and we come in over, we would simply come in and ask for a contingency to pay the bills. So we can get tighter with those particular numbers. But that's probably between personnel and utilities. I think that's where our homework is right now, trying to finish. So Blair, if you go back to the other presentation. Any other questions on the building management, not that one. Yeah, that one. Like I said, I think utilities and personnel will be. The other thing too to note is that in there, there's the benefits costs for employee benefits have all been removed. So it's not a reduction in our budget. Those monies are coming from the county, from a specific fund now instead of within our budget. So the other budgets that we have, IT budget, Charles works to put this together. The revenue from this is $1,092,997. A lot of this is from chargebacks from special revenue funds. So any of the offices or departments that bring in money from state or federal funding or fees where they're supposed to be self-funding, the IT department charges them back a rate from a fee study that was done. And that money is collected and applied to the general fund expense for IT support. It is down a little bit. And I think some of that is related to agreements that we have with different offices that stipulated lower amounts than what was originally budgeted. So we're just matching it up to the agreements that we have. The salaries and wages, again, these are budget line items that we received kind of in the last week that we're trying to work through with finance. It's showing us being $184,359 less this year than last year. I can tell you that our goal is to not have any vacancies, and we would employ all of the people and use the money that we had in 2023. So we're going to be working with finance to discuss the vacancies and putting the positions back into our budget request. The contractual services is changed modestly. It's down $86,800. We need to go through and revisit that and look at the contractual services line items, make sure that we're not missing anything. It probably could be that we're asking for the same amount as last year or more. A lot of our contractual services, even though the budget process told us to try to hold things flat, you have inflation and increases in costs that are going to obviously impact us. The commodities is paper products and office supplies. We do run the print shop and the copy center. A lot of that money goes into the copy center and supplies for all of the offices and departments. We don't buy all of that just for the IT department, just to be clear. So the total expenses that they're showing is the negative 269,000 between 2023 and 2024. And I think it'll be closer to break even. And if they honor and let us do the increases for the additional contractual services, you may see it go over 2023 slightly. But right now, we're still reviewing salaries and wages and the decrease in contractual services. We're trying to figure out if we're missing something. Any questions about the IT budget? Again, these are big numbers. The details were all in the packet. If you notice a line item that doesn't seem to make sense, please let us know. We're trying to go through it and see which items we want to dig into, the ones of the biggest variances that we think might have concerns. The GIS department, Tom Nikoski is here with us today from GIS. His budget is in the traditional format. It's the typical first review, second review, and then the net change. His budget is all from recorded fees and special revenue. So this doesn't affect the general fund. And generally speaking, the revenue has to match the expenses or come from the fund balance. And his budget is down $23,578. Again, the packet has all the details in it. No significant changes in any of the line items year over year. If you have any questions about the GIS budget, Tom's here. We could try to answer those. Hearing none. The last one is Mill Creek. Mill Creek is a special service area. It's created by an ordinance that has a levy associated with it for Mill Creek. We've been working with the Mill Creek Special Service Area Advisory Body to discuss their levy, and their charge in the ordinance and bylaws is to make a recommendation to the county board to keep their levy the same, raise or lower their levy. Right now, I believe their intent is to make no change. So they're going to continue with the same levy is going to be their recommendation. So this budget is based on the same levy that they had in previous years. The county board, however, gets the authority to change the levy, not the SSA advisory body. The advisory body just gives a recommendation. So the total revenue for the Mill Creek SSA is $988,259. Part of that is from the levy, part of that is from cash from the fund balance. There's a large fund balance for that account. It's probably somewhere around 1.4 million is in the fund balance. I believe a lot of that'll be used for capital projects or for large projects this year. Specifically, they have a lot of sidewalk upgrades and sidewalk improvements and also asphalt for the roads. But salary and wages is the one technical coordinator that they have, and it's budgeted for that position. I'm not sure what the net negative is. We need to look at that. It might be that the budget was set before we started this, and they've never paid the person fully what the amount was, or they may have partially paid for a staff person in building management to help. Contractual services, we did increase contractual services a little bit, but it's only $7. So I don't think that'll be a major change. Commodities is roughly the same. Net difference is $1,462. And again, this is all special revenue. It does not affect the county general fund. It all comes from the SSA levy. That said, I think the biggest thing for the Mill Creek SSA budget will be when they get the bids done for the sidewalks, we will have a large capital request coming in to spend money on sidewalk improvements. And I think that'll be a significant expense from the reserves. So these are the other budgets that we're working on. We're working on IT, building management. You still haven't seen the capital budget. We have the capital budget in the works for both IT and building management. There's also a countywide services for contractual services and software licensing. And then we have funds in the public safety sales tax for the sheriff's systems and funds in the judicial technology sales tax for the judicial systems. So all of those generally are presented with the countywide budgets under finance, and we'd be coming with finance to provide additional information and reports on all of those budgets as well when finance announces that they're going to do the countywide budgets. So I think that's all four budgets. That's the building management, IT department, GIS, and Mill Creek SSA. Again, there's additional information in the packets. If you find items that you want to ask questions about, you can ask me, ask Charles, Henry, Brooke. They certainly can look into it and dig in deeper. And again, we still are working through personnel. We're working through contractual items, trying to make sure that we have accurate numbers. And then these other budgets as well, we're going to be working with finance on those. So, but that's all we have for today.
Okay. Madam
Just a
Juby?
follow-up question. When you mentioned that SSA, the Mill Creek SSA, when they get their bids and everything, they're going to have to go into the reserves. You're talking about their reserves,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing is, next time you meet with them, can you ask them if they have any interest in partnering with the Forest Preserve on the old barn that is in their greenway? Because I know that I know that they were very upset the last time a barn was taken down. And I don't know if they're aware that the one on the greenway is now potentially, even though it's on Forest Preserve land, I didn't know if they were interested in trying to save that or not. If you could just
I
bring
can
it up
find out.
to
Yeah,
them, that would be
we're
great.
meeting with the Forest Preserve. I think it's about a week, 2 weeks from now in October. We're going to be meeting with the Forest Preserve to talk about the parcels that are out there. This not off topic, but the parcels in there in Mill Creek, the SSA cannot own parcels. The SSA is a creation of the county. So the county and Forest Preserve and park districts own all the property or Shodine. So we're kind of constantly in this battle of who owns it, who's taking care of it. So I'll bring it up and ask them whose is it and who's
Well,
taking care
just
of
if
it.
there's interest in them
Yeah.
trying to crowdsource to donate it to the Forest Preserve, because I know that they like I said, they're very protective of the barns that have been removed.
Okay. Is
As
it
it's
north
been.
or south? Do you know?
I don't know
Find
where
it.
it is,
North.
Chris.
It's off of 38 here, right? North. Yeah, the barn's on 38. And those guys
I
are
thought it
south, right?
was south, but is it? It's,
But it's north of the
Yeah.
SSA,
oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
the 38, but south side of 38.
okay. Yeah, for Fabian,
It's a big
for
barn.
Mill Creek, the north is north of Fabian, south
Yeah,
of Fabian.
So it's quite a bit
Yeah.
farther south.
So
It's all called Mill Creek, but that's because the creek
Okay.
runs through there, I think, more than,
All right, we'll look at it.
yes, that's, yeah. Or you can maybe provide that information, the contact information to Juby and
Sure.
Bates. Would be interested in that, or you
Okay.
can share it with Bates.
Can do that.
Yeah. If you want to have somebody with some
They know more
passion,
about it than me.
some passion for the barn,
Sure.
then that might be better to have them. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, can I have a motion and a second, put the reports on file? Second by
Yeah, have a second.
Davist, all in favor?
Aye.
Reports are on file, no need for executive session. Is there any public comment for non-agenda items? None, I don't hear. I may have motion and second to adjourn.
Davis moves to adjourn.
Tab to adjourn, Ford seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. The mirror